My name is Nick Wheeler, and I'm an admissions counselor with Western Michigan University. Today, I'm going to walk you through how to properly fill out Common Application for our first year application. Here, as you can see, I'm borrowing Buster Bronco's account so that we can go ahead and check things out. Go ahead and press sign in, and we'll go right to the dashboard to get things started. Once you've signed in, it'll bring you to the dashboard. This is a test account, as you can see here, which is why this box is appearing for me. You should not be seeing those things. If you scroll right down on the dashboard, it'll show you all these different sections. Anything with a white circle like this is in progress. When it's completed, it'll show a green circle with a check mark, and you know that you'll be finished at that point. My Common Application can be found on the left side there, but right here, it makes up the bulk of the personal information that gets shared to these different institutions. And then underneath that, you can see My Colleges, and it'll show you all the colleges you've done and whether or not you've completed their applications. Let's go ahead and show you how to add colleges to this tab. On the left, you'll see all the different tabs that we're going to use today. If you scroll down, you'll be able to find more. But right now, we're going to start with College Search. To add colleges, you come to this tab, and you can search up a university or a college by its city or its name. In this case, I type in WMU, and it'll pull up Western Michigan University. There'll be a blue tab that says Add right here, and when you press that, it gets added to your My Colleges tab and changes to Remove. Now that I've done that, let's go ahead and add personal information. First, we'll start with My Common Application right here. This is where you fill in your personal information, name, address, how to contact you, etc. There's also tabs for family information, the school that you're currently attending or going to graduate from, any testing scores you want to add, extracurriculars you may be involved with, and writings you want to add that may be helpful for different applications. Once you've filled all these out, it'll show green tabs here or green circles with check marks and say complete as opposed to in progress. Once you're done with all this, you can go to the bottom of each section, press continue, and it'll pull you through each of these tabs. Once that's done, we go to the My Colleges tab, and we can see all the different requirements of different universities that we want to apply for. In this case, we can see currently in progress. So let's show more details to figure out how to go through it. Here, it'll show you all the required aspects of that application in terms of my application, questions, and any additional information that may be necessary. It'll also show you the writing requirements for any universities that you're attending. In this case, for Western Michigan University, our personal essays are optional, so you don't have to add them. Otherwise, you could click this link to go ahead and figure that out. Next would also be college questions. But let's go ahead and go into that questions tab so we can show you how to add more personal information specifically for Western. When you click that, this is where you add more information so that me as an admissions counselor can go through and properly review your application. In this case, we would add our entry term, when we want to start. Fall 2026 is the assumed start time if you're graduating at the end of this academic year. Then, preferred admission plan. There are two options, rolling admission or early action. If you're applying before December 15th, this would be early action, and it's the recommended that we have for you. We'll go through deadlines a bit later on to discuss more of what that means. Once you finish adding more of these information, we can press continue to move on. The academics tab is where we would add our major. We're going to take a second here to go through a couple of different examples. For any of our students coming to campus and not online, you're just going to click Main Campus Kalamazoo. Then you can click one of our many different majors as an option. In this case, I've just selected Nutrition and Dietetics as a basic option. But let's go through some of the niche corner cases that may come up. If you're applying to any of our fine arts colleges, in this case, music, but that could also be visual arts, dance, theater, or design, it will tell you about our secondary application process. Each of our fine arts colleges will require a secondary application, and so it'll tell you how to properly go about doing that once you've completed your Common App. If you understand, you can click here and figure out everything else here. There are two others that are going to be a more specific case, which are different from the norm. Those are our two competitive programs. That means there's a limited number of spots that people get accepted in each year. The first one we'll start with is Aviation Flight Science. When you click any of the aviation colleges, any of the majors there, it will bring up this section here, which breaks down what each of our different programs mean. Aviation Flight Science is our professional pilot program, which includes labs, private instrument and commercial pilot certifications, and many other things. For this program, you would have to apply by our early action deadline of December 15th and submit it through Common App. Afterwards, they will start to make decisions once all the applications are in and send out that information a little bit later towards February. It'll also tell you more about our non-pilot programs if those may be more interesting to you. There's one other competitive application that we will go through today, and that's going to be nursing. When you click nursing, it'll give you this section here, which breaks down what makes it a bit different. Direct admission is going to be the competitive version of the nursing program. As a cohort model, there are a limited number of slots when you're going to the professional level courses, and direct admission reserves your spot upon your initial application so that you don't have to apply at a later date. In this case, you also have to apply by that early action deadline, and you have to mark here if you want to be considered for direct admission. If you apply for nursing, you don't have to apply for direct admit, but if you would like to, this is where you indicate that field, in which case it'll give you a prompt for an additional essay. Once you complete that, you can move on to complete the rest of the application, and it'll ask you for any information that you may need. The last thing that may come up, depending on what program you want to go into, is our pre-professional programs. There are 3 specific pathways this can follow: something in health professions, a law program, or if you want to go into our secondary education program. In the case that you do want to attend something such as dental school, you can pick a major up top and then select here to notify that you want to go into the pre-dental pathway. As you can see here, there are many different options from which you can choose from. In this case, I'll go ahead and select pre-dental so that they are aware I have other plans after Western. Then I press continue to finish up the rest of this application. So, in the same way that you can notify that you want to follow a pre-professional pathway for something in the medical field or the law field, that's also how our secondary education programs work if you want to teach middle or high school. So, in the pre-professional section, select none of the above. And up top, you'll first have to start by selecting a major. There are certain majors which will give you an additional box to then mark that you want to go into secondary education. A great example of this is teaching English. So I'm going to scroll down to English Creative Writing. There we are. And now when I select that, or any of the others that would notify this, you can mark whether or not you want to teach. If you do want to follow that secondary education pathway, select yes, and you're good to go. Alternatively, to select secondary education as a major, go down to Education Secondary 7 through 12, and it'll have you select which content area you would like to teach in. For example, mathematics. Once it's complete, you go to the Review and Submit tab, and you can go ahead and submit the application. Since this is a test account, I cannot actually complete the application. We're going to go up top to College Information so I can show you a little bit more. Here's where you can find a lot of very important information. Specifically, it'll list our deadlines. For our fall 2026 application, the early action is December 15th, and the rolling admissions will go until June 1st of 2026. It'll also show you different things depending on what term you plan to start in. Other deadline information for specific programs are down here. As I mentioned earlier, our 2 competitive programs of Aviation Flight Science and Direct Admission to our nursing program require you to apply by December 15th. This deadline is also important to be considered for the most scholarship opportunities that are available to our first-year students. The other one mentioned here are anyone applying to our fine arts programs, anything in the visual arts, music, theater, dance, and design, and it will mention how to properly go about submitting or auditioning through your secondary applications. It will also show you again that information earlier about what information is needed for the application and any writing requirements that may be necessary. Up top, you can also find our information to reach out to our admissions office and let us know if you have any questions. Thank you folks so much today. I hope that this has been helpful, and please reach out if you need any more assistance.